Welcome, everybody. This is Kim D. Snyder, and I am here to show you how to get leads in 1 hour a week. So let me flip my screen over here. Got it. And I am not showing you the right screen. Okay. So, and the way that you're going to do that is through speaking. So we're really going to look at how business has changed in the last bit. And I'm super excited to present this to the Social Register Network. Please hold your questions to the end. And also, I want to make sure that if you're going to do any comments, please go to StreamYard. There's a link in the description. And if you can put your first name and last name, it really helps us understand where the comments are coming from so we can address you properly. We're going to hold all the questions to the end. So when they come up during the presentation, please type them in and I will address them. And then I also have an option for you to follow up with that discussion with me if you have any additional questions. So the 4 things that we're going to look at today that you'll discover is a little bit about me and the speaker, about my company, just so it can give you some context. We're going to look at that MORE leadership strategy, and MORE is an acronym for Marketing Operations Leadership, Marketing Operations Revenue and Efficiency. We'll look at the 3 promises on how to generate the leads, and then we'll look at some next steps. Who am I? I am Kim D. Snyder. I am the founder and CEO of Online Marketing in a Box. We've been around about 10 years here. I'm an owner, an author, a speaker, and a podcaster. Some little known facts about me are I'm a former executive that used to consult at Fortune 500 level. I started my first business when I was in college in a while ago. I have traveled to all 50 states. A couple of them I traveled through briefly, but I've been to all 50 states. And I sewed my prom dress. So this is a little known fact. I don't know if I'm super proud about the fact that I have sewn my prom dress, but hey, what I'd like you guys to do to put in the chat, so when I come back to it here at the end, is if you can tell me how many years you've been in business, that would really be helpful, and tell me the type of business, and that will give me some context. So when we get to the questions at the end, it gives me an idea who I'm speaking to and speaking with. A little bit more about us, who we help. We help business owners, leaders, and executives with that MORE leadership strategy. And we do it in multiple ways, whether it's coaching, consulting, whatever the term is that resonates with you, masterminds, training, facilitations, and strategy. We become that trusted advisor. We become the avoid the shiny objects person. And we help fellow business owners, really stop figuring out on their own. And I think that's one of the ways that we differentiate ourselves, is that we are business owners too. We are practitioners and doers, and so we understand what it takes to run a business. We are just not a fluffy piece. We get results, we have fun, and we love what we do. I mentioned the MORE leadership strategy. The component that we're focusing on right now is definitely in the marketing area, and there's a couple components that lie in there, but I wanted to give you a context that this is what we walk through. These are the 4 core components that every business needs to get you the best results the fastest. And so this is why we focus on these areas. And when we're looking at speaking to drive leads, this is a component of marketing. One of the problems for business owners today is that we all look alike. We're all a business consultant. We're all an accountant. Everybody is the same. We have to figure out a way to differentiate ourselves and how to look different. So how do you stand out? Please, in the chat, again, so when I get there, please tell me, how do we start to stand out? How do we make sure that we're different than our competitors? And not just our competitors down the street, our competitors in another state and in another country, depending on the type of business you have. I can't wait to see what your comments are, so go ahead and type them in, and we'll review them when we get to the end. Here's some areas that I think that we can do to stand out. The first one is niche down. And what I mean by 3 levels is, you can't be an accountant for X for what, or you just can't be an accountant. You have to go to like 4X because of Y. You can't be a business consultant because you have to really niche down. So it might be a business consultant for women in years 1 and 2. It could be a CPA for e-commerce companies in the startup industry. It could be a financial planner with people that want to have accountability that are early on in their career. So you have to really, really niche down. And this is ways to stand out. Now, it doesn't mean you can't help others. It just means you're really, really clear on your language and your marketing, which is the other component of niching down, is it really helps you with your marketing. And then you can start speaking to that. Another way that we can stand out is really doing that hard stuff. And speaking is one of them. We all do it as business owners. We have conversations at our desk or virtually online. And it's taking those conversations and making them to a broader audience. And it's also about capturing attention. There's so much information out there that in some ways I don't think that we're competing with other business owners. I actually feel that we're competing with attention, with our scroll, with whatever's happening on our screen or the TV or wherever you're at. The third way that we can stand out is customize. So the marketing and the sales component that you're doing now has to be very, very specific. So you have to know your industry, you have to know the problems, and you have to know what they're struggling with, and it could be specific. And so if we take the example of the accountant that works with women business owners in years 1 of 2 of the business, there's going to be specific things that they're dealing with, and your sales copy should handle that. We can't do a one for many or one message fits all anymore. So maybe you decide you're going to help women in years 1 and 2, and maybe women in years 3 and 4 of business. Those are very different messages that you're going to have, and it's going to be different copy, and that's how you have to handle that information when you go to sales. The other thing is that you do have to customize because we are competing globally, and many of our businesses are competing with the folks in another country, another state. And so making sure that you really stand out, because the competition, it's in some ways it's like you go bigger, but you don't go you go globally, but then you still have to try to figure out how to reach those folks. And so finding that balance between making sure that you stand out locally and regionally and nationally and internationally and whatever makes sense for your audience. Well, that's great, Kim, right? That's what you tell me. But, I mentioned that we are competing for attention. Did you know that our attention span from years 2000 to 2015 went from 12 seconds to 8 seconds? The final column on here, the 2030, I was just guessing. And I said, you know what? If we take that difference of 4 seconds and we do the same difference in 2030, that means we have a 4-second period that we can get people to focus on our thing for a specific amount of time. Okay, so that just changes our sales and marketing totally differently. So again, how do we pattern interrupt? How do we stand out from that market? Well, here's another one of those hard things that we have to do as a business owner. We already know that people have a fear of public speaking, but did you know it was 4 out of 10? So again, those conversations that you are having one-on-one or maybe in a small group, we can take those conversations and move them to speaking. And so really now you're having a speaking conversation with one person in the audience. Just there might be multiple people, but it's still a one-on-one conversation. And then finally, how do we be efficient at it, right? Because we're all short on time. And whether we work too much, whether we have different priorities, whether we want to spend time with ourselves, whatever that is, that combination of working hard and smart is the efficient work. And so how do we do that, personally, for our team or our group or department, and how do we do it for a company or organization? So really looking at how to be the most efficient in all of those areas so that we can achieve our goals. Ta-da! Well, that solution is speaking, and speaking provides leads for you in 1 hour a week. And I really like this because the first of 3 areas that we're going to look at are really maximizing your sales process, how to avoid this one mistake, and then how do you capture leads easily. And so let's look at the first one. How do you maximize your sales process? And there's 3 ways that you can do this. 1, you are going to do the one-to-many approach, right? So you are going to go speak to a group of people instead of having those one-on-one conversations at your desk or on the phone or at the coffee or at the lunch. However you're doing your process, you're going to do it one-to-many. So that right there is much more efficient. The second way that you're going to do this is you're going to make sure that your target audience is in the audience. Make sure that, if you speak to business owners that are in years 1 or 2, you're speaking to that audience. If you're speaking to people that have money to invest, that want to save time, that you are speaking to that audience. If you want to help people that are X, you speak to that X audience. And so that is what you need to do to maximize that sales process. And this process, by the way, works the same if you are online or offline. It doesn't matter. And when I say online, it means online on the internet, on Zoom, on GoToMeet, whatever that process is. And it also works offline or in real life or in person, however you want to look at it. And so you can do speaking online, you can do speaking offline or in person. Here's a case study. One of our customers said, a year later, and public speaking still scares me a bit, but I show up. I teach via webinars, I attend masterminds, and I do keynote speaking. In September, I'm part of an amazing panel at a conference with 7,500 in attendance. This person was afraid of public speaking, and I can tell you now they are a year and a half later, and they're speaking in a conference with 7,500 attendees. Talk about influence and impact, right? And really moving that online activity to offline so you can really see how you can reach more people and be more influential. The second one we're going to look at is to avoid this one mistake. And the one mistake is don't be salesy. Nobody wants to go see your same presentation that you're giving at your sales meetings when you go to speak. So, and if you don't do that presentation, make sure you're not selling in the whole way. It's helpful if you seed, like I just did in the previous example about talking about a customer success story, so people can see that and understand like what it meant specifically for them. But I don't consider that salesy. I consider that helping people bridge the gap, giving people inspiration. And yes, it does give authority to me and my customer, but you don't know who that is, but it does help. But make sure you're not being salesy. You know, if I came in here and said, buy my product, buy my program, it's really good because blah, 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 that's a sales presentation. People don't show up to see you speak for that reason. They show up to be entertained and informed. And so make sure that you are not being salesy. The thing that you can do is make sure that you're valuable or you're providing value. Make sure that your information is relevant and make sure that it's showing that you're an expert. So it needs to be valuable for that audience. And so if I'm going to go speak for accountants and I'm going to go speak to financial planners, they have different sets of needs and they're going to find out what is different, right? So I work with business owners, leaders, and executives. I have to understand that audience to go speak to them. You do too. When you're speaking to an audience, if you don't know that audience, talk to the person that booked you or talk to some of the attendees and figure out specifically what would be valuable and relevant for them. Now, relevant, make sure that you've updated your information in this last year. Like you really shouldn't be using too much stuff from definitely 2019 and probably early 2020. Like almost everything should be updated because things have changed so much that if you're using that same information, it's going to seem old and outdated. And so are you, and people aren't going to want to work with you. The third thing that's going to be helpful for you as a business owner is it's going to show you as an expert. So like it or not, the person in front of the screen or in front of the stage is the expert. Even if you're sitting in the audience and you know more than that speaker, the person in the front of the room is the expert. And so just by the fact that you're in front of the room or in front of the screen, that makes you the expert. So make sure you don't blow it and make sure you really show them what you know and be helpful and understand that you are just giving people a really small peek into how you do business and how you work with them. A little known secret is I totally forgot. So we're going to have to come back to that one at the end and I'll make note if I don't remember, or I have an opportunity to give me feedback at the end and put that in there and I'll remember it and I'll email it to you if I forget. So my little known secret. Can't believe I forgot that one. My apologies. Okay, another case study. I love this one. This business owner saw immediate impact and influence. And I remember we were actually doing a dual presentation and this entrepreneur put on this specific event. And right before the event, they said, Kim, I'm so nervous. I'm like really kind of nervous to present. I said, you'll be fine. The audience loves you. They know you. Well, guess what? By the end of the event, when we were doing our recap, not only did they want to do it again, but they wanted to do it for a bigger audience. And so they saw the impact, they saw the influence, they really understood how standing in front of the audience really elevated them and their authority, how it made this particular audience want to work for them, and they weren't being salesy. They were providing only value. And so, this information about speaking 1 hour a week can really give you those results really, really quickly. The final one is how to capture leads easily. Well, this sounds really silly, but you have to ask, right? So I mirror what I do. So at the end, I'm going to ask for a feedback form. And part of that form is asking for, do you want to talk to me about anything that I spoke about? Or if you have any questions, that is asking for a lead. It's a really soft ask, but I'm totally fine with that. But I'm asking, and you have to have a call to action. So if you're not asking for a lead, you could be asking for them to sign up for a checklist or a template or a video or something else, which I'm also doing. But it is having people take action to get on your list, to take a next step with you, to go deeper. And that is how you start to capture leads efficiently and effectively. And the other thing is, just like your speech or your presentation, this has to be valuable, has to be something that you want, right? So what I have to offer is I'm going to have a checklist of 6 things that you can do. What can you do to get leads, or to speak to 1 hour a week? Like here, we've only talked about a couple, but I'll go into more in depth in that handout or checklist. Well, what if I said, hey, how to do videos? I mean, we're not talking about videos, we're talking about speaking. Or what if I said how to learn how to play baseball? Like, that's not relevant. So make sure it's relevant and valuable to your audience. And that's how you start to capture those leads very easily. And because most speeches are 1 hour a week, 1 hour at a time, that is the easiest way to do it. It's a similar presentation. I do mix up my presentations, but I present, and it's 1 hour, and you get your feedback forms, and those have your leads, and you go from there. Those are the 3 areas again. So you maximize your sales process, right? So speaking to groups, because that's the one-to-many approach. Make sure you have your audience in there, and make sure it's valuable. The one mistake to avoid is don't be salesy. Make sure you're really relevant. You are value content driven, and that you are showing yourself as an expert. And just the fact that you're in the front of the room means you're an expert. And then we just talked about how to keep your voice, how to capture leads easily, which is ask and make sure you have something that is relevant for them. Excuse me 1 second. Okay, feedback form. So I would love to get feedback and I'd love to get my voice back. I'll put a link in the chat, but if you want to go to online marketing in a box, if I could spell there, .com/SRJ for Social Register June, there's a feedback form in there. And we're just going to ask for your name and your email. And that is, again, just to see if you have any questions. And we're going to ask for what was the most valuable topic? What did you want to hear more about? What are future topics? And I'm always curious on future topics. This is how I keep the pulse of the audience. And I also share this with, Mary Grace, the owner of Social Register. And then there's a couple check boxes at the bottom of that form if you want to complete. And it lets me know if you want to have a further discussion. And then if you want the tips, go ahead and check the checkbox at the bottom. And what I'll do is I'll add you to our email list, and I'll send out the tips to you, the 6 tips, so that you can go ahead and see what else you need to do to speak to get leads for 1 hour a week. There's my generate leads checklist, which I just mentioned. And let me go ahead and put it in the chat. And I'm going to switch over here and see. Sorry, the screen's going to be ugly for a moment. Let me put this in the chat. Well, maybe I'm not going to put it in the chat if I can't figure out how to do it. I'll have Mary Grace put the link in the chat again. So Mary Grace, if you want to stop my screen share so we don't see that and I can see the things, thank you. That would be really good. Okay. So great information. Well, thank you. Thank you. What questions do you have? Oh, I do see the links in there. Awesome. Okay, let's see what we have here. Awesome. Hi, Lauren. Thanks for hopping on. All right, looks like we have Dan and Luke in the comments. Do Luke? I don't own my own business, but I have worked in sales for 20 years. Awesome. So yeah, this is, this information is relevant if you own your own business, if you do account management, business development, sales, for anything, right? This is still having you speak and get out there to elevate you and your business. All right. Yes. So you can definitely stand out with, additional skills besides those core skills of the product. And so when you speak, you get to bring in those additional skills, whatever makes sense to you. This is the part on how you stand out, right? So if you're a salesperson, but you excel in, customer service, then make sure you bring that to part of your presentation. And I can't believe that you wouldn't do that anyways, because it's naturally going to come out. And so we talked about standing out. Well, guess what? Now you're a salesperson that has a huge interest and expertise in customer service and can help them with X. So remember how we talked about those 3 levels? That's a perfect example of making sure that you know how to stand out, and it's just going to make it stand out and be relevant to you and authentic to you, and then it's going to be really easy for you to speak. Let's see, stand out authentically, relationship. Yeah, go the extra mile. You don't always have to get paid for the values you provide. Absolutely, right? A lot of us do networking. A lot of us do volunteer work. So there's a ways that you can provide value to your customers and other groups that are not asking for dollars, right? I connect to people a lot. Don't ask for anything. Just want to make sure, excuse me, they have the ability to connect. Let's see, we've got one from Mark here. And it says, I'm a business coach helping home care agency owners considering successful expert. Awesome. So again, Mark, speaking to the audience, right? So speaking to home healthcare agency owners who want an exit, and then also places that those home healthcare agency owners attend, and finding what groups they belong to, and then go speaking to them and speaking to people that would work with them. So, accountants that maybe specialize in that, or look at some of those other areas that help. Anything in the healthcare industry, right? You can look at some of the additional service providers. I kind of call it the upstream, downstream. And so speaking to the people that would help those business owners. So in their like maybe their operations, and then maybe some of the customers. And so if you find that those home healthcare agency owners are, they're referring people. So maybe they have, maybe they're bringing in additional staff to supplement because they have something specialized. So maybe they're bringing physical therapists that they don't normally have. You can even speak to that group, because that group helps you get to those home health care agency owners. I don't know why that's so difficult for me to say. You're welcome for the information. Let's see what else we have. Yes. So speaking to other groups creates awareness for your company, your product, your service. Absolutely. It is basically selling without selling. It is sharing without selling. However you want to look at that. It is getting in front of the audience to stay relevant. You're welcome, Dewey. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing, but it is getting in front of that audience to provide value, to stand out in the crowd, to be that interruption person, to make sure that you are remembered, to help that audience. So there's multiple benefits, right? Like it benefits you, it benefits the audience, and it benefits the audience's owner. All right, let me see if I have any other questions. I still haven't remembered my little known secret. Oh, actually, I think my little known secret was the person in front of the room is the expert, or the person in front of the camera is the expert, regardless if there's people in the audience that know more. That was my little known secret. Yeah, please go and provide the feedback form, and the chat's been awesome, but provide that feedback form for me. It's really, really helpful. If you guys wouldn't mind to take the 2 minutes to fill it out, would be super helpful. onlinemarketinginbox.com/SRJ. And that will let us know what is the most relevant, because to me, this is a lot of like training. So I want to know what really hits that mark for you. I want to know what you found the most relevant. And, you guys think that sounds really simple, but it isn't. It's really nice to see what resonates. One time I had given a speech, and there was a question that came up, and the question spawned another, not topic, but area. And 80% of the respondents said that kind of subtopic that came up was the most interesting for them, not in the original topic. And so, I always want to know, like, I didn't do that feedback form, I wouldn't have known. I can't provide that feedback, to the owner, and it helps me in the future presentations, so I know what to incorporate in, so that I know that it's relevant. So, I would actually incorporate that in, or I would go back to that group and say, let's do a topic in this specific area. And so it's really, really helpful when you get those comments. Let's see, I see some comments coming in here. All right. A couple other questions I get at this point before we start wrapping it up, which I guess we're really quick here. It's only taken us about 30 minutes. One of the questions I get is, do you do the same presentation online and offline? Yes. The way that you engage people is differently, right? So when you're online, like here, you have to engage in the chat and you have to slow down, or let them know how they can communicate, let them know if you're going to answer questions at the beginning or the end, which is a lot like offline, but here you have to use the chat a lot. And so when you ask a question, you have to wait for people to type it in, and then there's that scrolling. And even if you have somebody facilitating, like Mary Grace or another representative from the organization, you still have to slow down a bit because people can't chat as fast as you speak. It also takes a second for it to be stream to whatever platform they're watching. And so when you're speaking online or offline, the online sometimes is a little bit slower. And so I do know that sometimes I will slow it down depending on the platform we're using and the number of people in the audience. And then it also depends if it's streaming, if it's a webinar. Like streaming and webinar are similar because it's a one-way communication. Like it's me speaking in the chat. Thanks, Shaw. Also, we will add you. If you want to if you could fill out the form so you don't have to put all your private information in the chat, that would probably be best, because I think that might be public record. So if you want to go put your information on there. So anyway, so I was saying, so, streaming and webinars are typically one-way information from the presenter standpoint. When you do kind of a meeting, so like a Zoom or a GoToMeeting, and there's some other platforms, that you can allow a lot more interaction, and sometimes you can allow people to speak. So you have to be aware of what's happening online. When you go offline or in person, you can read the room. And so it's probably been 4 weeks now that I spoke to 2 live audiences. I was asked to go speak at 2 business masterminds in Southern California, and it was really interesting to stand in front of a room again. And in fact, maybe it was 6 weeks prior to, or, like 6 weeks ago, I also did that as well. And it's really nice to survey the room, and you could really get a sense of that interact and engagement. Here I have to look at the chat. And so some of it's faster in person and some of it's not. So it also depends upon your style. So that's one of the common questions, I think. Do you think there is a different impact in between webinar and in person? Yes and no. I have this debate with people. I think that however you are in person is however you are online. And I was kind of snarky in my comment one day to somebody, and I said, look, if you're boring online, it's probably because you're boring in person. So I think it's actually harder to present online. I think it's really hard for me to sit here and talk to a screen and not see faces out there and look at the chat. I think that you have to get really creative when you're online. So I actually think online's tougher. I think in person or offline is much easier. It's still a lot of work, though. It's still a lot of work, regardless of who you are, to hold a room, provide information, make sure it's relevant for everybody, because you have different groups of knowledge in there, making sure you satisfy the owner or whoever brought you into the group. So there's a lot of things to weigh. I mean, it's not easy to present, but because you guys are business owners, I already know you're doing those hard things. So I know that you can do this because you're already having those hard conversations. So it's not any more effort to take that one single conversation and just have it multiple times to a group. I've got another question here is how to increase visibility when I'm performing the work. Yeah, so I would say perfection is the enemy of done. I would say get it done. If you have an assistant, I would make sure you start. This is part of your marketing campaign. And so if you have an assistant or a team, and if you don't, then you're gonna have to do it yourself. But I would reach out to known groups so hold on. Any business group always needs speakers. And if you produce content, you know that. So any group needs speakers. That could be, Social Register. It could be BNI, LaTip, Network, something, NABO, eWomen, EO, any of those business groups, construction, real estate, bar associations, they always need speakers. And so I would start there. And, this particular person, Shauna, is an attorney, and she's asking about that. I would go to the association that you belong to, because that's an industry that you know. Now, some people are always like, I can't talk to my peers. That's always a little tough. But it's also the one you're well known in. And so if that freaks you out, then go to somebody that's a really good supplement. So if you're, I talked about that upstream, downstream supplement. Go speak to people that refer business to you so you can go help them. So if you get a lot of your business from other types of attorneys, then go speak to them. And like if it's a specific, if you do like personal, if it's a personal injury attorney group, then go speak to that association, or go speak to, if it's the healthcare industry, or if it's chiropractors, or if it's whatever that industry that you support, go talk to those people if speaking to your own industry is there. And it's just part of your business model. Now, I will tell you, sometimes it takes a bit to get your first one, but once you get it and you let people know that you speak, the other ones will come in. And so, really crafting that speech, and it's about something that you typically are doing. You just have to make it so it's education based and not salesy. And so you're providing information, and then make sure you provide the call to action, right? Because you are speaking and it is your time. So you want to make sure that you get a lead from it. So let me know if I answered your question on that, or I need to follow up on that, Shauna. Any tips on topics to present? Yeah, present what you know. So just like I was talking to Shauna, she does, I forget what type of injury attorney she is, but you're already having those conversations. And so, whatever those conversations are that are relevant. So I would say, ask your business coach, ask your mastermind what you think would be relevant. We do have a Speak for Leads program that's starting that we're going to walk through this specifically. I can kind of tell you some generic ones. Okay, good. Or general ones, but it is almost those same sales conversations that you're having, but it's telling them more of the what. And sales is kind of some of that why, but if you can tell them the what to do, that would be really relevant, because people are coming to you for those questions. And so I would say if you really kind of sit down and think about it, look at the marketing that you're doing, that's kind of telling you the topics that people want to know. That's the thing that people want to hear you speak. If you're not sure, put together some common topics that, again, are relevant for you. So, somebody mentioned that, they're in sales, but customer service is really important to them. And so, they could come to a group and say, hey, I could talk about how to get more sales or sales techniques. I can also talk about how sales and customer service are related. And I can do a third one that is talking about maybe how salespeople need to be more customer related to get, more results. So you could take those areas that you already know and then just, ask the group members what would be relevant. And they might say any and ask them, and you can form something. Okay, so Shauna, we represent business owners in contracts, in court, succession, and estate planning and probate. So, for me, that one's really easy. If you're talking to business owners, you could pretty much talk to any group that has business owners. It could be, like I said, NABO, National Association of Women Business Owners. It could be eWomen, any of the kind of the networking groups, I'll say in town, but also online. And so don't stop just online. So if you want to hit the BNI group in Las Vegas, then you can hit the BNI group in Denver and Arizona, and hit them in every state. And again, depending on your business, if you can go regional or national or local, then it's really easy. Once you get into one group, you can kind of start speaking to the other groups. And so for me, again, Shauna, yours is really easy. Any type related to business owners is really easy. You can also speak to, other professional groups, accountants and attorneys, financial planners, because they're dealing with finances as long as they deal with business customers, and let them know. And so you can do that as a value add for them. Yeah, that's a great idea. You should be speaking to this group, because I would love to hear about, succession planning or court or something like that. So or not court, avoiding court of a contracts. And so I think that would be really relevant. So yeah, I want to remind everybody, if you can type in, if you can complete the form, it's really helpful for me. So it lets me know what's most important for you today that we talked about. It lets me know what you're going to start using right away, because I'm all about action. It lets me know future topics, and I'll share that with Mary Grace so that they know. So I would make sure, Shauna, when you fill out that form, please put in there succession planning. I would also make sure, if you guys are interested in having that conversation, or you want that checklist, put the checklist at the bottom and I'll email it to you. If you want, you put your phone number, I'm happy to call you. And, if you guys have a few questions that are specific to you, I'm happy to answer those at all, any questions that you have. So make sure that we'll keep that form up, because I know this is going to be out there and it's going to be recorded. I think it probably makes sense to keep that form up for a while. And then we'll go ahead and close it off, because we want to make sure that the people that take action are the ones that get rewarded. I'm a huge fan of action takers, and that's what makes people successful. So let's just give it another minute, see if you guys have any questions. I can see if let me think about if there's any other questions that I get that are pretty common. But online, offline, that was a good question about what do you speak about, how to find the groups. I would say look to your marketing and see what you're marketing, because that will give you an idea of the topics that you could use as speeches. If you're not sure of the topics, you can ask the owners of the groups that you want to go speak to, or owners, or if it's nonprofit, whatever, you can ask them and they would tell you. But it's always better if you can kind of come to them, but you can fill them out. Sometimes I've come to groups with like 5 or 7 topics, just because they're not sure what they're looking for and they don't know like what I can deliver. And so I can kind of ask those hot point areas. But, generally, anytime you can increase revenue, decrease expenses, decrease time, save them headaches, save them money, like those are kind of common themes. So anytime you can propose something like that, that's always really helpful. So I'm not seeing any more comments come in. I'll give it about 1 more minute, and then I think we're ready to wrap up. So if you want to go to onlinemarketinginbox.com/SRJ for social register June, you can complete that form. Let us know what's resonating with you. Let us know if you want us to send you the checklist of the steps to generate more leads, right? We only hit a couple of those topics today, but there's 6 steps. I believe there's 6. 6. We'll tell you what they are and what you can do to make sure you start speaking and getting leads. And, it's an hour a week. Like if you can do that for a month, that's 48 times a year. Let's just say it's 40 times a year. I mean, and even if you get 1 lead, 40 leads is pretty good for 1 hour of work. I would say that's pretty good. So, 1 hour of your time to get a lead. What is your lead worth? Hey, you're super welcome for the information. I'm glad you guys found it helpful. And I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up here then. I want to make sure I'm really cognizant of everybody's time. Time is very important. And so if you have any questions, the best way to get a hold of me is complete that form. And then if you want to email me, you're always welcome to email me. But if you complete that form, just put that in the note. I can email you. I can call you. Let me know what topic is most interesting, and we'll go from there. So thanks again, everybody. And have a great day, and go speak. In fact, when you go speak, please tag me in the post when you're talking about speaking. Please tag me. I will be super happy for you. Okay. Bye, everybody.